Breaking the gray.
Russ, how are you doing, Russ? Where are you in the world today, Russ?
I am in the same place I always am.
I thought so.
Sitting in the same place. I've been venturing out of my house to an office in San Francisco, and I'm taking public transportation. It's like, and I am taking all the risks I need to take that I didn't take for 19 months, and I feel fine. I feel totally fine.
Yes,
Yeah.
Of course. Why wouldn't you? Oh, good for you.
I mean, look, I am one of the vaxxed. I'm one of the percentage of vaxxed, and I feel I can rip my mask off. And there are some days I just like, I'm gonna rip all the clothes off and just see what happens. So
yeah. I'm not sure there's a vaccine for that, Russ, but
no, there is no vaccine for the people that see me without my clothes. You should ask my wife. She avoids me constantly. Sarah, and where are you? You're still in your road show with Bruce Springsteen in America.
That's right. Yeah, Alice Cooper.
Yes,
yes, I'm here in Austin, Texas, which is where our guest is from today.
My God. Okay, I can see him. I see a hummingbird behind him. Can you introduce your friend, please?
Yes. So going on from our theme of awesome humans that we started up a few weeks ago. This is an awesome human that I met at the Biohacker event in Miami, Freddie. So Freddie, I'm so pleased that you came on, and I know that you missed your ballet debut to come and be on the show with us today. So it's super cool, and it's really lovely to have you on.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah. Yes. So Freddie Kimmel had a great story. You gave a presentation at the Biohackers, but also I knew you, of course, before from you have a brilliant podcast. Is it Brilliantly Broken?
It's the Beautifully Broken podcast.
Beautifully Broken podcast.
Mm-hmm. You're looking at it right here. I am beautifully broken. Every day. I'm like Humpty Dumpty. I'm like Humpty Dumpty. I'm just trying to put the pieces back together. I just jumped in. Sorry, keep going, Sarah. Keep going. I'm sorry.
I'm actually, you gave a very inspiring talk at the Biohackers, too, in fact. So of course we can't recreate the whole thing here, but it would be good if we can just instill the essence of that, because you have a great story. And also now you're going on to do education, and I know you're trained in a lot of different functional health techniques. So it'd be good to talk about at least one of those if we've got time. But let's start with your story, because I think Russ, in particular, you're going to like this story because it's going to resonate. I know you have a similar background. So Freddie, if you don't mind just giving us a bit of your backstory, that would be super cool.
Yeah, I can get it almost down to 30 seconds. I can do it very quickly, but we'll embellish a little bit because it's a podcast and we're here to talk. So to recap and just to I guess we'll open the door and we'll just start out. I moved to New York City in 2001 to be an actor, a Broadway performer, and the second I set down my bags, I just started to have this storybook career unfold. I booked my very first show of a Broadway national tour. I got my union card. I just started to get better and better jobs. And right around the time I was 26, about 5 years into it, I was diagnosed with testicular cancer. And soon after, the next day, I found out not only did I have cancer, but it had metastasized to 9 tumors in my body. So I had to immediately jump into very intense chemotherapy and many, many surgeries. And about a year later, I was declared cancer-free. And at that moment, it's kind of that point where you're like, okay, now I'm going to be invited to Oprah. I'm going to write a book. I'm going to be a poster child for all cancer survivors. And I just started at that moment, things really started to get bad. I started to have additional surgeries from complications from my initial procedure. abdominal adhesions were cutting off my small intestine and causing visits to the emergency room, emergency surgeries. This went on for almost 2006 to 2015. I had 5 different surgeries in the midst. You can imagine what your nervous system starts to do after this much trauma. Immune system shut down, diagnosed with Lyme disease, toxic mold exposure, you name it. And I just started to, I basically had to become my own best advocate for health and wellness. I had to take things into my own hands because what I was offered was really opiates and more surgeries. And I was becoming that kid who spends most of his time on the couch, missed most holidays, missed most vacations, didn't have many consistent relationships, really was always on the struggle bus. And one of the more compromised people I knew. So again, looking to the fringe, looking to become a certified functional medicine health coach and a Reiki practitioner and a gut health expert and a certified movement specialist and international sports science. So I just started training and again, seeking out these experts in the field of scar tissue or biotoxin illness or Lyme or recovery from chronic illnesses. And really, I rebuilt my body through technology, supplementation, mindset, and just really honing into the idea that whatever we're doing, it's got to be programmed with joy. And I rebuilt my body back into a state where I was strong enough to get back into Phantom of the Opera, or like the Broadway tour that went around the United States. So that was kind of that, I proved to my ego that I could do it and get back to a certain place. And now I've just kind of officially retired from theater and I'm full time in this, the sandbox of talking about health and wellness. Like you said, I do a podcast. It's 100 episodes in about all this transformational technology and all the things I use to get better in depth, whether it's deliberate cold exposure or red light therapy or pulse electromagnetic field. And I love it because I feel so good. And I have my little N=1 experiment where I see what's worked and what hasn't and exactly what does what. What's the difference between laying on a red light diode for 30 minutes and what's the difference between a coffee enema? Well, how do those feel different in my body? Right? They're very different things. We could both draw some scientific strings to where they might benefit liver detoxification or anti-aging or increase in ATP. But really, we kind of get into the nuts and bolts. And it's funny, this platform, exchanging information through a microphone with other people like yourselves, has been one of the most, it's been the through line through my healing. Started when I was really lost. It was like Tim Ferriss and early days of like Dave Asprey and Luke Story and Ben Greenfield. So it's been where I've downloaded most of my information. So I feel very honored to be a podcaster and to be offering, my subjective experience, objective experience to this community of listeners. It's the way I really got most of my information for getting better. And I'm really trying to level up the bar with how we retell our stories, how we remember exactly the details. Where's the actionable? How do I get in and get started? So I did that in about 2 minutes.
No, that's perfect.
I was gonna go back to the cancer because I too am a cancer survivor. I had lymphoma when I was 21 in college, and then just all of a sudden, just everything. My entire body just quit on me. I had cancer throughout my entire body because I had lymphoma. So it was started from my neck. I had these weird lymph nodes, and it went all the way through. And I think were you in your 20s when you got testicular cancer, which is a typical age for testicular cancer too, and same with Hodgkin's.
It is. I think the prime risk group is about 18 to 35. They adjust those numbers every once in a while, but I was 26 years old, so I was right in the middle. Yeah.
And so I'm curious about, did you worry about your health before you got cancer? Was health on your mind, or was it just a shock to you?
If I go in timeline back and, it's like from my experience, research and all the other people that I follow, cancer doesn't show up in a day. Most people will tell you it's 10 years in development on some level of trauma inside the cell. And there's this book that I always refer people to that are looking to learn more about the why of cancer, the metabolic approach to cancer, which looks at mitochondrial dysfunction. I could tell you when I moved to New York City in 2001 that I was stricken with grief looking for a job during 9/11, just being on the train with people coming back and forth and seeing like every like 10th person be like running mascara in tears. I remember getting home and like no skills for processing those type of emotions at 21 or 23, whatever I was. I just being very overcome with grief. I mean, I can remember I had mononucleosis when I was 18, very sick with mono, right? Yeah. You know, so that's something as I've discovered and done more testing and looked at the terrain, I've seen, wow, I still have a very high titer for Epstein-Barr and cytomegalovirus and HHV6. So I see that chronic viral infection. You know, I can go back to when I was 5 and had my adenoids pulled out and I had tubes in my ears for chronic infections, right? Yeah. So the terrain, you know, for people in the audience, I'm sure you guys talk about the terrain or the bioterrain. It's like, why do we make a home that is so ideal for cancer or disease? Yeah. You know, is it emotional? Is it environmental? I love the example of the fish tank. If we have a beautiful tropical fish tank and you turn off the oxygen and you turn off the lights and you put a sheet over the tank, and you come back in 3 days, there's mold and fungus, all the fish are dead. And nobody came and dumped a disease in that tank. It was in there in a state that was checked or balanced from the environmental inputs. Fair. And so I always look at the body like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's interesting because like you say, it's probably a mix of all those things because they have a cancer personality, you know, which, you know, some people say so there's been a trauma. That does seem to be one of the things that most people who go on to develop cancer can identify something like that. So there is obviously some kind of psychosomatic connection and how that influences the terrain too. Because we had one of our guests we had on who just overcome breast cancer and she can, you know, identify, she had a lot of relationship things and it ended with her husband ending his life and then she got the cancer. You know, I think that's a very important part of that, how you distinguish between your mental environment and your physical environment.
Yeah, I think we could also look at, listen, if you want to get really granular and look at the chemical changes in the body when you undergo chronic stress, you know, look at mineral depletion alone. Look at how magnesium depletes under chronic stress, 10 to 12x, right? Magnesium arguably present in, I don't know how many hundreds of metabolic processes in the cell. You know, you want to delete your body of its most prime mineral and nutrient. You're going to have speed bumps down the road. So it's the chronic stress, chronic depression. You know, I always think about the idea that our breath changes, our respiratory rate changes under chronic stress. And so with that depleted oxygen environment, how much vital resource is actually going to the organs of detoxification, like the liver or the gallbladder when we're not breathing? Yeah. You know, it's all these downstream effects. And so I always look at the body like a car I know what my dashboard looks like, you know, miles per hour and gas in the tank and oil. You know, I have those ones that align with the body that I kind of know to check.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. You know, I've been through many I of therapy, years of therapy. I'm not equating chemotherapy to mental therapy, but why not? And I, you know, one of the amazing things that I think someone pointed out to me once was that you probably gave yourself cancer. Like you brought it into your mindset. And my mindset was, again, stress, chronic viral infection. I had mono as a kid too. And my ex-wife tells me right when I meet her, oh, you know what? My boyfriend from high school died from cancer. So whatever you do, don't get cancer. Well, I never thought about getting cancer, but sure, I won't get cancer. But it was always on my mind. And it was all I thought about. And the stress of it. And I think there's just this, I think what you're saying is very true. Like to be able to biologically look at the numbers and say like you're breathing, you know, your oxygen depletion because you're stressed. So to be able to like know what that is by a number and to know what that is biologically, but the fact that you're going through a stressful, depressing time, grief driven, like that is the thing, that is the trigger point that tells your body, I've got to focus on that. And then everything, and then the mold and the algae takes over, and all of a sudden you've come up with cancer because your mind is somewhere else. It's focused on something else. It's really fascinating and hearing about it. I'm curious your transformation though. Like, what is the transformation moment where you said enough is enough? I've got to take my mind and my body into my own hands and really tackle this now.
Yeah. And listen, I was always, I always had my eye on improvement and feeling better, but like so many, I was really lost on the road of chronic illness or chronic conditions, especially with the biotoxin illness, the Lyme and the mold. And I do remember there is a day when I was walking down 52nd Street between 9th and 10th Ave in New York City, and sort of like had this moment where it was snowing. There was a monastery that was right next to my house. It's this beautiful statue of the Virgin Mary, like covered with snow. I just remember and I was so brain fogged that I was seeing like doubles and I was dizzy. And I said, oh my God, if I ever get to a place where I am functional, I'm going to be a lighthouse for other people. Wow. Just had that moment. I was like, that's all. That's the only thing. That's the only thing I can really promise anybody is like, listen, on the other side, I promise I'll pay it forward. And, the fatigue, the chronic fatigue and the depression and the low level energy, it was like, I was taking like a 10-minute walk and I was just dragging my feet, just felt so bad. And I was always performing at this time. I was really, for lack of a better word, a lot of this happened in hiding. I didn't always tell people what was going on. I didn't tell people that I was like laying on the floor for 36 hours, dry heaving because my small intestine was twisted. A lot of it was on my own. So a lot of it was suffering in silence, wow. Unfortunately. Yeah. So that is, I think another value is just, speaking about some of the stuff we've been through. It normalizes it in a way, it gives people permission. They're like, oh, it's okay to feel terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And yet you say that, when you were coming out of it, you were focusing on the joy. You said that you were doing everything so where did you kind of dig that resource from?
Yeah, I think that is, I think it's wired into DNA for sure. I'm revisiting a book that I read, Power Versus Force by David Hawkins. It's a great book. And they basically use muscle testing for certain states of consciousness. And there is a level of consciousness that is associated with joy. And it's almost like this, it's a breakthrough level when you can kind of bring joy into everything in your life. I read this a couple times. Whether it be going into surgery, whether it be in a state of extreme pain, where can you find humor in that moment and humility? Because it's the resentment for being sick or having it thrust upon you is an incredibly low vibration, and it's a very hard spot to get out of it. So it's wired into my DNA. I could tell you stories of where I had my mom when I was going through cancer, and I was in the emergency room or intensive care for 12 days, where they had, cut from my sternum to my pelvis, taken out the cancer, put all the digestive organs back, and she would like push me down. I couldn't eat. She would push me down in the cafeteria. I was like, I just want to go see a vending machine with like milk. So I want to dream about drinking milk again. Or I want to watch people walk in and out of the hospital because I want to watch people walk. Yeah. And I want to see them hold hot coffee and know it's possible. Like, it was that small of a thing that I was just like, I was like, let me just give myself something small that I can get excited about. So that also, going through that experiments, I do not take life for granted. I realize every single time I go to sleep, I'm like, woo, I woke up. It's just, that's there. And that's part of the beauty. There was a book, I think it's called We Are the Lucky Ones, about going through cancer and realizing your mortality at a very young age. And the small stuff, it's just small. It's just, it just doesn't matter. I was talking to a friend about attachment to material possessions. It just doesn't faze me anymore. I'm okay with getting rid of things, material things, in a conscious way. I'm not trying to dump everything in a dumpster and, further clutter up the earth. And I just don't have an emotional attachment to those things anymore. The only thing I'm attached to are really my energetic level, my vibration, my ability to generate my own joy and perception of responding to the outside world. We're so reactive. And I feel like, especially attachment to material things, right? It really weights us down.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, oh, the thing's going to get dent or damaged, or I'm going to lose it, or somebody's going to borrow it. And listen, that's going to come up at all levels because we're human beings and we operate on a system of fiat currency until we switch over to Bitcoin. But I think that it's always going to be that's part of being human. We got to work through that. But snipping those attachments has allowed me to focus on different things at a different level. That seems, you know, again, I feel a lot of joy through the day to day, whatever it is.
I'm curious about you brought up energy, and we've had a Reiki master on, and I think there's something interesting if you think back to your energy, and if you knew what you know now, and you were to think back to yourself when you were going through cancer, you know, how would you have treated yourself through Reiki? How would you have dealt with your energy to get through that? Because you didn't know, you were a young magi kind of growing up. You didn't know it, but now if you could go back, like, what would you tell people who are going through cancer about, you know, energy and how they are treating themselves when they're going through chemotherapy and they're unhealthy?
Yeah, there's so many ways. I mean, that's like a whole book, right? It's like, what would my advice be to somebody going through cancer treatment right now? It's a great question, and we'll just stick on energy for a second. I would have two answers. I would have the emotional energetic, and then I would actually go to energy in the cell. I would have a conversation with somebody about, look, you know, at the end of the day, your body is a self-healing, auto-regulatory body until it's not. And so I think about the body as a machine wanting a little bit of surplus to go in and do the work that it does. You have an immune system that eats cancer every day. So how do we supply the body with more energy? I would remind people that among and above all things, you are someone who comes into your highest power, resonance, and alignment when you're in nature. You know, I'd say while you're in treatment, be outside for an hour and a half a day, be barefoot. Mm-hmm. I'd say expose yourself to the elements. You know, ice baths, great. Well, all it is deliberate cold exposure to a hormetic stressor, which is going to help you unburden that stress cuff. I would say things like, again, energy, as far as like mitochondria of the cell, your cells worked until they didn't. Why did they stop producing a lot of energy? Was it trauma work you can do? Is it environmental toxicity? One thing that's been a big part of my healing has been deburdening the toxic cup. So testing for heavy metals, testing for glyphosate, testing for microplastics. And how do I get those out of the system? You know, that's a part of your terrain that chemotherapy or surgery will not fix. So we've dealt with the immediate emergency situation with cutting your tumor out. But there's a bigger question. And how do we restore the body to that state when you were in most alignment with nature? Mm-hmm. You know, I talked to people that were going through cancer about the energetic vibration or the ability to recharge with sleep environment. My dad fell asleep like watching the TV. He would like have a couple of beers. You know, it was like, I think back to like their sleep hygiene was non-existent, and probably because this is something that comes up for me. I find most of our fears and trauma in life is caused by fatigue. Again, it's when that cup is a little empty. So how do we better navigate that through sleep hygiene? Things like just everything that would bring your body back into alignment and allow it to produce excess energy. You know, I talk about a lot technology like red light therapy and pulsed electromagnetic field. Now, those are things in my mind. They're sort of a nature element, but they also do some heavy lifting for the mitochondria in a very short amount of time. Yeah. So, as you know, in the U.S., pulsed electromagnetic field, they don't use that in the hospital. You get a healthy dose of magnetic resonance in an MRI tube, really healthy dose. And if you actually look up studies of people having treatment-resistant depression, you can see people having reported states of profound joy after doing an MRI because they're getting that whack of magnetics, that ping, ping, ping in the tube. That's that magnetic resonance bouncing back and forth in the tube.
Right.
So in Germany, they use PEMF with chemotherapy because it changes the permeability of the cell. So all of a sudden, you don't need to use this mega high dose to eradicate every fast reproducing cell in the body. You can get away with a much lower dose. And that's something I hope we start having the conversation about in the United States. For whatever reason, and I hope that comes. But that would be that side of it. And then I would say to the other, to speak to the mental emotional of somebody going through cancer, what would the advice be? Who are you surrounding yourself with? Who is your top 5? Because you're going to be most like those top 5 people in your life. Are they supporting you? Are they talking down to you? Is your greatest success, is that in their list of priorities? Mm-hmm. It has such an effect. Like my life, my drama in my life, which I remember, I can remember high school, college, the drama. There used to be a lot of drama. I was around dramatic people who had, shitty objectives. My greatest good was not in their top 5 priority list. So you should have friends that do that for you, that want to lift you up and hold you up and celebrate you every single day. If you're not doing that for me, we just don't spend time together. And I can smell it quick. I can smell it. I'm like, oh, you want shit from me. You actually don't want to be around me. You just want something.
Yeah, they're feeding off of you, right?
Yeah. And it's terrible. I just had a person the other day. I was just like, I think I'm going to get off the phone now. They were like, what? I'm like, I just want to get off the phone.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't even want to go through your 8 years of therapy you need to start the conversation where we would be at. I love you. I support you. Loving grace. Go with peace. I want to get off the phone.
Yeah. It's about extending your environment that far, because we've talked about a lot of things in the environment, the light, the food, of course, even music.
Yes.
But the people, of course, you have to include, and that's such a big part. We are tribal pack animals,
Mm-hmm.
We need to have a good tribe and a good pack. So that's a brilliant point. You really do need to be holistic about your definition of your environment, I think is what you're saying.
Yeah, I also think it's really a neat point that you bring up about tribal and packs and what does that supportive number look like to me? I'm reminded there is a number in which society falls apart, melts down, and self-destructs, right? We're way beyond that, especially with the social engagement or interaction. I was watching again, as somebody who spent a lot of time as a storyteller on stage and an actor and listening. I always tell people it's not performing. A really good performer is just listening and they're responding. You're just like, what? That's why live theater is so unique. Yes.
Oh yeah.
Blocking, pattern, notes, choreography is the same. But if you really get a bunch of people on stage listening every night, you can't catch energy in a bottle. So it's magical. You're like, oh, the nuance is amazing of live theater. I still love it. I'm still not done with it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And that's all you're doing. You're like, in my experience with this community, you're like really honing in and you're listening. Great coaches listen. Dovetail. I was watching the Facebook CEO, Mark Zuckerberger, talk about the branding of Facebook, which is switching over to Meta. The metaverse, like this all-inclusive environment where we don't have to leave our homes, where we can be in VR, where we can feel and touch new experiences. Now, I'm watching him give this announcement, and it was so sorry if you love Mark. I'm sorry. I'm not hating on him.
I'm not sure there are many people that do.
I know, but I'm telling you because I'm listening and I'm observing him. His body language was the biggest bullshit I've ever. It was like he was doing. His hands were drifting up and he was floating around and he's like, I'm being a human now. And this is what I propose. It was so inauthentic and so rehearsed. And it was good, but it was scary. I was like, ooh, you worked on that. They told you to get up and do a slow 45-degree pivot it was mechanical and monstrous. And I was like, looking at his eyes, I was like, guy's got shark eyes. Now, I know it's not that his eyes are dark, but there is a darkness to him that whether good or bad, I don't want to say that as a judgment, just an observation of you, Mark, but there is a darkness which he brings to when he addresses an audience or communicates. And I've always thought that. And I was just watching it the other day. I was like, wow, how interesting the degrees that we all hold as different people and different personalities. And now here we have someone leading this community that we're supposed to buy into. Yeah. Anyways, the net is I'm not sold.
No, I get it. And it's taking us away from that natural interaction. I also love live theatre, not doing it, but listening to it. Is that your dog speaking up, Russ?
The dog was agreeing.
Sonny agrees. He watched it too, and he said, "Mark's weird. He's
a bit weird." But I was also thinking. I mean, I actually did want to get into post-electromagnetic fields with you, but we've run out of time. It'll have to be another podcast. But the whole thing about fields and vibrations, and actually being with someone and being in that field, the value of that, even biophotonic transmission. Yes. I mean, you certainly were that light. At the event. I could see you from right across the room. I could see your smile amongst all the other smiles, because you definitely are living in, whether we call that a higher vibration or maybe you're emitting more light. I don't know, but that's a very real thing. It's a very real thing. And we need to not lose that. We're speaking via Zoom, although we're only up the road. I mean, hopefully we'll do something at the weekend, but that human to human interaction is crucial, and making sure it's with people that you trust, that are on the same wavelength, literally on the same wavelength. So that's very cool. And I know that a lot of the therapy that you do is utilizing modulating frequencies and waves and all of that. But like I say, we're a little bit run out of time, and we still need you to do our 7-day challenge. Yeah. So maybe we'll put a little bit about your post-electromagnetic field stuff on the blog too, so people can.
Of course. So we could do another one. We could just talk about pulse electromagnetic field. But as you said, you have an energetic body. I have an energetic body. We have cells that communicate through pulsed frequencies and pulsed light and pulsed electromagnetics. We cannot define what dark matter is. We really don't even. It really isn't matter. There is not a solid. Doesn't exist in the universe. It's all oscillating patterns. So the movie The Matrix was spot on. And that's how we I think I say that point just to remind people the power you have to influence other people. And a lot of it starts with choice. And a lot of it starts with your belief system. That you can just lean into that, and with your words, with your eye gaze, with your touch, with your intentions, you have the ability to affect other people in a positive way.
Yeah, and in a negative way if you're not paying attention.
Sure.
If you're going out in a foul mood, you need to, it's not just you that's suffering. It's, potentially your kids and whoever else the person on the bus is kind of getting a hit in the face from your negativity. So I think, it's awareness. It's awareness that you can have a dramatic effect on your environment.
And it's something Christy brought up as well with Reiki is you have to be very careful, because you're absorbing people and energy around you. And I think it is really dangerous, because you are so open to connecting. Your light is shining, and that the people are, people will connect with you, and you've got to be very, very careful who you connect with, because it is probably hard for you to disconnect from somebody because you're connecting at a different level. Is that real, Freddie, or did I just make that up? I could have.
You know what? I think it's whatever it's belief system. I don't have that belief system.
Yeah.
My light goes out. You can drink it. You can fill it up. But I have a very defined force field up that I remind myself that I'm a sovereign being. I remind myself it's a choice to let your bullshit into my field. Yeah. And especially when I hear it, I can hear it in the spoken word. People show up, and again, what's the ask? What are we doing? What's the relationship? What are we exchanging? And if it feels like it's negative or it feels like a drain, I remind myself, I was like, oh, that person's kind of out of integrity. They're bringing their trauma into the conversation. I can kind of close this down and remind myself of that pretty quickly. I really put up that, not a force field, but I remind myself that it's not a necessarily like a bi-directional even flow. Really, in the realm of all possibilities, when we don't know what matter is, I'm going to go ahead and make up my own rules at the end of the day. Yeah.
So let's talk about the 7-day challenge today. I feel it's joy driven, but I'm curious to see where you're taking us.
Yeah. So let's talk energy. Let's talk chakra centers. Let's talk the bioenergetic field. Let's stick on this theme where we're light beings emitting light, which can be tracked through. I love GDV photography, gas discharge photography. And I just want to remind people that this isn't just Freddie's imagination. We can really measure the light coming off a human being. So with that light, we have energetic bundles down through the spine known as the chakra centers, or energetic bundles. There's nerve bundles there, and those bundles can be blocked. One way to move that is frequency or sound therapy. I personally, because I have a background in music theater and all the Broadway things, I'm a big believer in waking up and sometime in the day, sometime in the first hour, vocalizing or singing. Mm-hmm. And again, if we're looking at in the world on the world is the periodic table is a piano, right? We can look at all the elements as a different vibratory pattern, or we can think about there's really only 8 notes, right? It's all a variation on 8 notes. So I like to do just a simple scale in the morning, and I like to do that 1 to 2 times a day whenever I feel that my cup is running over with stress. Whenever I catch myself doing this, or a sigh, I'm like, you're not breathing.
Right.
So go ahead and do this little exercise. So I can do it live now if we want. It just take me like a minute.
Yeah, sure.
So we're gonna count. We're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we're just going to do that on a note. We're going to sing that, and we can make it really simple. I like counting because I can see the steps going 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So we're going 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5. 5's at the top of the steps. And we're just going to go down 3 steps. 4, 3, 2, 1. So you can do that with a word. You can go, and we can start a little lower so it's not so high and intimidating, but it would just be anytime you're stressed, just do this for 5 minutes. 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The other way you can do it without the words, you can just go yaw. So yaw is a nice open position. If you yawn, if you guys both were to yawn, now go, but don't close it out. Just go. That's an incipient yawn. That's the moment before palate's lifted, larynx is dropped. We've got a lot of space in the throat. So, yaw. Nothing in my face is moving to do this exercise. If we watch this video, or if I give you guys a video for people to watch, the face is very relaxed. We don't sing with our jaw or our face. I know Mariah Carey does that. But if we're vocalizing, everything happens in the vocal folds, which looks like a little vagina, and they just open in the middle, and they're just touching like this. It's really incredible. Google, YouTube, vocal folds singing. It's incredible to watch. You're like, oh my God, my body has a cello in it, or it looks like the inside of a violin, right? As I'm making noise. And the only thing that changes that pitch is my brain. I can change the pitch without moving anything. It's all mind control of the voice, right? When we want to change our pitch. So I would just say, 4 to 5 times, yeah. Now, if we want to go up and get a little of like a depression alleviation, we'll keep going up by a half step. So I'd go, yeah. You could keep going, but you're gonna find if you do that for 4 to 5 minutes, your next conversation will be better, more grounded. It'll be more heart-centered. It's gonna move you into your heart, right? It's gonna move you. So that is it's a free way to do sound therapy. It's a free way to align the chakras. You're gonna get all the resonators up here in your face, in your forehead, in your eyes, in your cheekbones, in your jaw, in your chest, in your lungs, even in your glutes. We've got resonators. We can change the sound and quality of our voice. So it's just one of those things. You want to use your whole body when you're using it. And it's amazing the power you can get when you have sovereignty and control and access to your body's true voice.
Wow. No, that was amazing. Thank you for that. Super cool. It almost sounded a bit like church, like when you go to church and you hear the singing, which is something I was enforced to go to church. And so I refused to do the singing.
Yes.
Because I didn't want to be in church. But I actually now think I probably missed out, because the whole point of that music is not so much what I thought at the time as a kid, like they're trying to brainwash me with these words. It's more about getting you into a certain state with that kind of the musicality of it. It actually, like you're saying, it alters your consciousness. It alters your state.
It opens you to certain pathways and ideas. And I think, I was reminded this morning, somebody, a Broadway composer was like, made a post on social media. He was like, he had a screenshot of music somebody had set down on the piano to sing for a Broadway show. And it was like, touch me, Jesus. And it was kind of a giggle. He's like, oh my God, if I had a nickel. The idea, and again, from David Hawking's book, Power versus Force, he goes back and he's like, listen, the original word of religious, what I want to say, beyond religion, like Jesus, the Buddha, they aligned with a very high state of consciousness. However, men, they take that information and they process it and they put it into a book and they put their demands and their shame and their like darkness on it. And then there's another version. And so they can almost chart like through time the different versions of the gospel and how it's degraded, right? It was a very pure message. If you look at just Jesus's word, if you look at Buddha's word, like these are people that aligned with such a high consciousness. They were barely on the planet. And it was beautiful. And then kind of, as people, we twist it and we manipulate it and we build in shame. Religion is different than spirituality, which has sort of been used as a control mechanism, not as a place to elevate people,
For sure.
Yeah, it's a conversion. It converts to power, which converts to control, and all of a sudden now you're using the word of God as your legal doctrine versus a spiritual doctrine, right? And you're right. You can see in the Bible how it just completely changes, and you're like, whoa, like that is now it's a book of laws versus what it was intentional. What intent was. I mean, I think many people have said before that, like, Jesus is Buddhist, right? He is a Buddhist by nature, and people just mistook his word or mistook what his intent was. Right. But singing and being able to do it in a way where it's non-judgmental. Like I find myself, my first reaction is, I can't do that. I'm incapable because it's a personal judgment I have of I can't sing.
Sure.
But I think it is that opening up, right? Like you're opening yourself up to just be free, right? Free of judgment and doing that too. I think that's awesome.
I wish somebody had taught me that when I was a kid, Freddie, to do it without the words, to get that vibration without the words, because, now that you're saying it, of course, it makes perfect sense. You're actually like using that harmonic to resonate in your body to make you feel better. But at the time, like I say, because I didn't agree with, I missed out on probably a lot of healing that goes on with that intonation.
Tons. And we talk about, especially in some of the technologies, it's like, how do you get the frequency or the resonant into how do you get the innermost area of the cell to hear that? What better way to do that with your voice?
Yeah, than to vibrate the voice in your chest. Okay, well, the challenge is accepted. We will do it. We will record it. I mean, it won't sound like when you did it, Freddie, definitely from my side. And I
can help you guys with it. I'll help. Yeah. Are you guys going to do it? Can you guys count? Can you do the 1, 2, 3? If I start it? If I do it, hold on. Let's just see.
I'll try.
Okay. Let's try it. We'll start nice and low. We'll start down here. 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna go, then you go. So I'll go 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Ready?
Okay.
1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3.
Good. 2, 3, 4.
2, 3, 4.
Yes. 3, 4, 5.
3, 4, 4, 5.
Ready? Here we go. Here's 4. 4, 3, 2, 1.
4, 3, 2,
1.
Guys, that was good. I'm proud of you.
It was terrible, but we will practice. It was awful, I know, but we'll practice, Freddie, and we will do a little video.
I want you to also think about, as you do this exercise at home and you think about, it's going to feel foreign, it's going to feel awkward, it's going to feel weird, and that's okay. But we to give it the awful, terrible qualifier, your cells all hear that. Your voice hears that.
Yeah, of course.
My body is a body in process. I'm trying something new, and I'm going to offer it a little grace.
Yeah.
It'll be exactly what it needs to be. Remember, you just told me this is something you had fear and shame around, right? For your whole life. So to have you open your mouth and expect it to be like ready for Broadway, it's okay. That's okay. But we'll get there. We'll get there.
Perfect.
Freddie, thank you for being another wonderful human. The planet needs more of you. And thank you for being amazing.
Yes, thank you so much, Freddie. And hopefully we'll get you back to do the pulsed electromagnetic fields. But thanks for that. It's been great.
Me, 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 me. La, 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 la. La, 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 la. Sarah.
Russ,
I found something. I think I found something.
I can hear that you are doing your Freddie challenge.
Is it pathetic that I actually forgot the numbers and counting? I just said, when he said you can hum it, I was like, perfect, because I couldn't remember anything he said number wise. It was like, all I can remember was 4, 3, 2, 1. That was it. The other part I couldn't remember.
Well, it was 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the
yeah, but it was like 1, 2, 3. It was like 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know what he was doing. Lost.
He made just counting sound amazing. So yeah, I'm afraid. Right. We failed because we couldn't even count to 10.
Totally, he's one of those people too where you don't know their talent until they show it. Right? You don't I didn't realize he had such a great, beautiful singing voice. And then when he started singing, I was like, I'm going to stop talking. Keep going, my friend.
We should have got him to stop. We should have got him to sing the entire episode.
We should. Well, again, wonderful guest. I mean, and so many examples of someone who they've had transformational moments of healing from physical challenges, right? Testicular cancer. Oh, it's devastating.
Well, not only that, he had his entire body, cut open more than once, Yeah. And these are things where you think, wow, that's a lot to go through. But to go through that and then come out on the other side so positive and wanting so much to kind of share your knowledge, that's very amazing. He is one of our amazing humans and such a lovely guy. Absolutely.
Yeah, really. And he's doing things the way he wants to do things. And what I found interesting was that we're talking about the thing that Christy had mentioned around, not being careful what energy you pull into you, and that he has a boundary. And I thought that was interesting because when you're open like that and you are Reiki and you're pushing energy and pulling energy in, that he's able to actually have a little bit of a boundary where he's not soaking it all up, and he's pretty decisive around who he's going to, spend time with versus not.
Yeah, I think he spent a lot of time working on that confidence, a lot of time working on his, his energy. He spent a long time developing those skills. He's really consciously put effort into being aware of his environment to that extent. So I think there's a lot to learn from that. It's difficult to really measure that or to give people a technique for that, I think. He's obviously well read. He mentioned about 4 or 5 books just during the interview. So I think, he spent some time, he's read all the self-help books, he's done the work. I know that he spends a lot of time doing all the different therapies. He now does PEMF, which I wanted to talk to him a bit about because I am a little bit skeptical actually about the technique.
You tried to bring it up a few times.
I did because I think really, tell me exactly how you think it's working, because it is very esoteric and yet they're applying a very scientific way of delivering the energy. And I have experienced it myself, and I don't know, I think it's possible to push people either way using those techniques. So maybe, I'm not aware. I'm not aware of what it is.
It's
a coil that puts out a pulsed frequency, but some of the frequencies they're putting out are very, very high frequencies, which by orthodox science terms, you shouldn't be able to perceive. like frequencies that are in their thousands of hertz. Humans really can't perceive that in any tangible way. And as far as, it certainly doesn't set off firing of cells or anything. But people who use this therapy, are saying that they're using it for very specific things like 4,000 hertz, and they're using that for pain and anger and healing. And I wanted to dig a bit deeper on that and say, well, why do you think that is associated?
Do you have to put a bit between your teeth and it's okay. It's not like electroshock therapy.
But it's a big coil. It's a big coil that you have to rest on your chest or on your abdomen. It's like a heavy coil that they actually pulse.
Wow.
They actually pulse electricity through. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I may go. I'm in Austin now. Maybe I'll go and see that. Next time, maybe I think we'll have someone on who can talk about that therapy, because it is something that a lot of the biohackers do. And frequency medicine, we touched on it a little bit when we talked about remote healing, sending out frequencies, because I know that people can do this with a photo, for example. Maybe you don't even have to be there. So that, again, it's that, how do people think it's working kind of thing. But whatever Freddie's doing, it's obviously working for him, because the proof is there. He looks radiant and healthy.
Great skin. Great
skin, great eyes, great personality. So whatever he is doing, whether it's woo-woo or whether woo-woo works or whatever it is, it's worth investigating, because he is a good advocate for his technique.
Yeah, he is. And there's something about knowing your craft, right? Like as with him and Dasha and others, I mean, they know what they know what they're doing. Dr. Berman, like these are people who have really understood and honed in on their craft and are really focused on. And he said something really interesting around, like, he knew and he discovered in his transformation was that he was here on this planet to help people, right? And I think it's I don't think everyone's here on this planet to help other people. I don't think that's true for everyone. And I think to know that and to live that, I think it's important.
Yeah. So worth investigating. We'll put all Freddie's links up. But great guy, and maybe we'll see him again.
Yeah, and I will not stop singing out in public.
Forgot the singing.
I've only been able
to do it in the shower with the shower turned up and all the fans and everything on. And even then, I'm kind of like, ooh, wobbling away.
I did buy myself a lapel mic, which means I actually have to wear a sport coat when I go out now, so I can be mic'd up. And I just care, put a little speaker on my back and just sing out loud.
I can just imagine you walking around the house with your blazer on and your mic, driving everyone nuts.
It is freeing, though. It's something that I was mentioning this. Like, I've been doing a bit of research on. I should know what I'm doing research on. It's called Frisson or Frisian, Frisson, I think. Let me just double check. But it's that moment when you hear a song that, in music, where you're, the hair on your arms, you don't have hair on your arms, but I do. I have like a sweater on my arms, stands up, right? And like, you just feel the chills when you hear music. And I think there's, it's this thrill that you get. And my brother-in-law is a classical music composer, and he has an orchestra, and he talks about when they're all playing together, it feels like they're floating, and it's that feeling. And there is something magical about it. And I think when you free yourself to not be afraid for others to hear you sing because your voice is awful, I think people, I think it does feel different. You're putting a different frequency into your body and expressing it out.
Of course. And that's why in yoga they do the Om, because you are actually vibrating your cells. You're actually vibrating from the inside. I'm into the theory. It's just like I say, I'm staying in a house where I don't know anyone. But I have done this before, like something called continuum therapy, where you make all kinds of noises and you're directly trying to use your body as the instrument.
Yeah.
So I totally understand, orchestra. I mean, music is is transcendental the right way, or is that just the meditation? But it's transcendent. Maybe that's the word I'm looking for. So I totally agree. And Freddie was great. And to bring, that is something that I don't do. Some of our guests, I do a lot of the stuff. The singing piece, I don't do. So
He's also been on Broadway. So, I mean, he better bring that. If he didn't bring that, I'd be like, come on, man. Come on.
I think he'd like Abel James. I think we should introduce him to Abel James because they're both on a similar trip, aren't they?
We should future episode idea. We'll note back to this. Sarah and Russ, future episode idea. We need to do a panel around the power of singing and the power of voice.
Yeah,
Okay.
Noted.
Notes. All right. I'm going to send email to Sarah and Russ, future show ideas. Okay, done. Sarah, enjoy the rest of your day. This is a weekend, so enjoy your weekend.
Thank you. Yeah, it's Halloween weekend, so we'll see what happens.
Yes. Yeah. Spooky things. Enjoy it. Great to see you again.
Take care. Bye-bye.
The Rebel Scientist Podcast is a Breaking the Gray production. Created by Russ Eisenman and Paul Wood. Hosted by Sarah Turner. Music and sound editing by Logan Shea. For more information and other fantastic podcasts, visit breakingthegray.com. That's gray with an E. breakingthegray.com. Breaking the Gray.